This meeting to the State Transportation Board to order. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by myself, since this is my district. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If, Linda, if you could do roll call for us, thank you.
Deanna Beaver.
Present.
Bill Cuthbertson.
Here.
Joseph LaRue.
Here.
Jack Sellers.
Here.
Michael Hammond.
Here.
Stephen Pratt.
Here.
Jesse Thompson is absent. Chairwoman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, I've got a couple of opening remarks. The first one is we were hosted by the City of Kingman and I believe also Mojave County for the dinner at Calico last night, and it was absolutely great food. The camaraderie was wonderful. And I would go through the list of names of everyone that was there, but I'm afraid I would probably miss somebody. But suffice to say, it was a full room, and we all seemed to really enjoy ourselves. And like I said, the company and the food, everything was great. So thank you very much for hosting us last night. I have a tendency to like to do a history minute, and so I chose this board meeting to do it on U.S. Route 66. I took this from the Wikipedia because they articulated it in a nice paragraph. So, U.S. Route 66, also known as the Will Rogers Highway, also the Main Street of America or the Mother Road, was one of the original highways within the U.S. highway system. U.S. 66 was established on November 11, 1926, with road signs erected the following year. The highway, which became one of the most famous roads in the United States, originally ran from Chicago, Illinois, through Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona, before ending at Santa Monica, California, covering a total of 2,448 miles. It was recognized in popular culture by both the hit song Got Your Kicks on Route 66 and the Route 66 television show in the 1960s. In 1857, Lieutenant Edward Fitzgerald Beale, a naval officer in the service of the U.S. Army Corps of Topographical Engineers, was ordered by the War Department to build a government-funded wagon road along the 35th parallel. His second order was to test the feasibility of the use of camels as pack animals in the southwestern desert. This became part of US 66. In 1953, the Oatman Highway through the Black Mountains was completely bypassed by the new route between Kingman, Arizona and Needles, California. And by 1960s, Oatman, Arizona was virtually abandoned as a ghost town. They do have burros that roam the street there still. But I am someone who really likes history, and there is a museum just right around the corner. So any of us and any of you that are visiting Kingman, it is a wonderful museum that they have here. I would highly suggest stopping by and visiting if you get the opportunity. So thank you for that. And now we'll move on to Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 as amended. Mr. Floyd Roach.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And a reminder to all board members, to help us with the recording and the documentation for this meeting, please use your microphone. There's a little button on the bottom. If you see the green light, that means the microphone is on, and then you can turn it off. There's a little gray button, and you can turn that off, and when the light's off, then you'll be able to sidebar without your comments being recorded. So the Arizona State Transportation Board and the Arizona Department of Transportation as policies ensures non-discrimination compliance on the ground of race, color, national origin, age, sex, disability, limited English proficiency, or low income status is provided by Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 et al. No person will be excluded from participating in, be denied the benefit of, or be otherwise subjected to discrimination under any state transportation board or ADOT program or activity. We ask the public to help us to assist in monitoring this participation by completing a self-identification survey, which is included in the back table, and giving it to either Linda or myself. Thank you.
Okay, now we will go on to call to the audience. And can we have Karen Flanagan from Bullhead City? Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairwoman Beaver and Commissioners. My name is Karen Flanagan. I live at 1896 Clearwater Drive in Bullhead City. I'm the Vice Chair for Mojave County Transportation Commission and the Secretary for the Colorado River Republican Women. I'm here today to discuss the roundabout situation in Mojave County. When the Golden Shores Topok Roundabout was proposed, there were many who objected. I kept an open mind as I was assured it was a good thing. At our Republican Women's Luncheon, we had ADOT engineer Alvin Stump come and explain to us that the roundabouts are designed to keep traffic moving at a slower pace, to avoid accidents or at least make them less fatal. Imagine my surprise while traveling south through Golden Shores Roundabout, I came to a stop sign, and I really couldn't understand, because it was explained it was supposed to be flowing, why I had to stop. So I kind of was upset about that. Fast forward to October of 2016, when you guys came to Bullhead City, we found out there's going to be 2 more roundabouts in our city on Highway 95. Myself and others are asking you to please revisit this. We see it as a disaster waiting to happen. The fatal accidents that have happened on 95, we believe, have a lot to do with people being under the influence of drugs or alcohol, medical incidents, and distracted drivers. And I don't think the road design has anything to do with that. So other than that, thank you for coming to Bullhead, or to Kingman, and enjoy to hear your comments.
Thank you. The mayor of Bullhead City, Tom Brady.
Good morning, Chairman Beaver and members of the board. It's my pleasure to welcome you here to Mojave County. You were here several months ago when we hosted you in Bullhead City, and I'm glad to see you back up in Mojave County in this portion of the state. I see that one of the things that you'll be voting on today is the contract for close to $2 million for improvements to State Route 95 from Bullhead City South to the Needles Bridge. Thank you. The last time you were here, I talked about how important that road was to us and in what deplorable condition it was. So I'm glad that we're finally getting something done on it. If any of you have traveled that road, there's sections where you will not even stay in the lane. You basically will move over to the other lane because you will rattle your teeth. And hopefully now something will be done, and we appreciate the work that is being done. I would also like to echo what Karen said. In Bullhead City and the Mojave Valley area, a lot of citizens are very concerned about the roundabout situation. We know that the roundabout is already planned for Aztec Road and Highway 95. I've studied your plan. I have some objections to it. I have some concerns about it. But I've been told to keep an open mind, which I am trying to do, and I'm trying to study roundabouts as best I can. Highway 95 is the lifeblood of Bullhead City. I encourage you to deal with the local agencies, the local governments, and get the citizen input and the input of your local governments before you make decisions on these. I do believe that a roundabout in Aztec can be a good thing. I think you'll destroy some of the businesses there, and I don't think the planning has been done well on that. But I know that you also have another roundabout planned for Camp Mojave Road, and I don't think that one will work. I don't think that you have enough land there to make the roundabout big enough and without destroying some of the businesses. So I ask you to tread carefully when you make these decisions, and I think all of us would appreciate it if you would consult with your local government agencies to get our input on it so that we can also confer with the public. We know that the public has strong feelings one way or another without actually studying it. My studying of the issue, if a roundabout is not big enough for the situation and it fails, we live with something that will be deplorable for years and years to come. So I ask that you study it carefully and consult with your local agencies before you make decisions that will impact the lives of our citizens. And that's all I have to say. But again, welcome. Thank you for being here in Mojave County.
Thank you. Mark Clark?
Thank you, Board and Chairman. My name is Mark Clark. I'm representing Lake Havasu City, and I'd like to thank you for being in Mojave County again. We have several ADOT projects in the works in the 5-year plan. We'd always love to see more in the area, but that's been a constant concern from everybody. Resources are limited. We understand that. Today's agenda does have an airport item specifically, so we appreciate that very much. We also very much appreciate the effort and the work of Alvin in the district, in the Northwest District. I know that they do a great job with their limited resources. Having been in the I used to joke that it was do more with less, do a lot more with a lot less, and now we're at do the impossible with nobody, but again, we'll continue to keep trying to do things. I think that this building here is a great example of how resources and funding sources have to be established. This was constructed with a 1/4-cent sales tax with Mojave County that they have dedicated for buildings and facilities. The example of the Phoenix metropolitan area having resources based on the sales tax, and I think that's really what we're going to have to continue to explore, how we provide those resources for transportation. Things won't change. I was lucky enough to work with engineers and staff that had been a part of constructing the original interstate system when I started in Holbrook in '84, and I'm working with people who at the end of my career will have transportation projects and responsibilities for 20 or 30 years, and I think that's what transportation projects are separate from, because they are a lifetime commitment of efforts, and one can see that just in this the back road to this location here. It includes old Route 66. It includes the newer old Route 66 through Perfume Canyon on the other side of the railroad tracks, and it includes the cut that was done on the interstate that was just completed in the 70s. So here you have, just within a matter of a mile, examples of how transportation continues to grow, and then just at 93, where it comes into I-40, the challenges that you will have transportation-wise forever, and then even the discussion of the Interstate 11. So this is a great example of transportation needs growing, and I appreciate your thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Johnston?
Thank you, Chairperson Beaver, Board. I'm here on behalf of the Arizona Airports Association, and I just want to thank you for all your work with airports throughout the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Kathy Rosengrant?
Board members, Madam Chairman, I want to speak about the I-40 93 TI Phase 1. I'm here as myself. I'm also on the Mojave County Transportation Commission in District 4. I love where I live. It's beautiful. However, the proposed TI runs through my backyard. I'm here to speak in favor of it. There's so much congestion coming off Coyote Pass that you can hardly pull out off of Fort Beale. The holiday traffic is unbearable. Most people from town have to cut through over on Fort Beale, which is a road that's really not meant for traffic. I hope that you'll consider this earlier versus later, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Christian Price?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it, board members. First of all, thank you for your service on this board. I know that it is a highly underscored and often thankless job, but I really do want to thank you for all that you do. I just wanted to briefly update you on a few things and the fact that I was able to pass out to you something that is transpiring here this November. Pinal County has finally decided to move forward into what is known as an RTA, a Regional Transit Authority or authorization plan. And it basically consists of a half-cent sales tax. One of the things that we know from Maricopa County and from other locations, Coconino County, as well as even the city of Phoenix, is that these RTAs go a long way into making transportation projects happen. It certainly creates leverage, and it raises additional dollars from the citizens themselves to put towards roads and projects that they want. And so I just wanted to let you know that that will be on the ballot this November. Now, in a state like ours, anything is possible when it comes to taxation, and while nobody likes to be taxed, I believe in the power of making investments in oneself, especially as we're trying to connect basically what is Pima County and Maricopa County, and you're coming through Pinal to do so. That also goes and plays out well with the projects that you are already currently working on, and that is the study of the I-11. I continue to sit on an I-11 board that basically moves us forward into the routes and into the studies that ADOT is doing while bringing stakeholders together to help support I-11. We also have a very big participation from our congressional representatives on that, and so I think that's key and crucial as we move forward on the federal level, as well as to making sure that that takes place and transpires. And then finally, again, as always want to thank you for your votes and for your funding towards the 347 overpass. That work has begun. It seems like after, what is it now, 14 years as a city, that we're finally getting there. And you know, as the complaints roll in because someone is inconvenienced by traffic delays as the construction begins, it's a wonderful sight, and I really wanted to thank you for that. If all things stay on track, we should have a groundbreaking here come October, and I'll make sure you're all invited. So thank you very much, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. Kealan Begay, Jr.?
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members. Continue to follow you guys. But of course, I'm here on behalf of the Apache County as well. I'm a member of the Navajo Nation Council. I continue to request and ask for your support of Highway 191 between Mini Farms and Chinle, Arizona. And, you know, with the two-lane road and with the increase of traffic, plus the school starting at the end of the month. So it's just a matter of safety and the traffic that we have, that we're getting on a yearly base because of the tourists. We got the Monument Valley, Canyon de Chelly, Grand Canyon, Four Corners, and so on. But I just asked the board members to continue to support and put in consideration of my effort in getting some funding and continue to focus on the projects that I come here for. So again, I always ask myself, it's when am I getting overboard or going overboard of addressing this particular issue? But I do appreciate your planner and programming manager from Payson's meeting and doing a response based on direction that you provided them. But I continue to work with my government as well, the Navajo Nation, the Navajo Nation Department of Transportation, and we're beginning to put together certain plans where we're not just looking at the other government, but we'll continue to want to also pitch in whatever cost and service that we need to do in addressing road issues within the Northern District. So with that, I just want to say thank you and appreciate the timing and safe travel. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chris Bridges. We have two people that follow us around the state, Chris Bridges and Christian Price.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Bridges, Administrator for Central Yavapai MPO. What you have in front of you, I've already presented, gave to staff, is a copy of a resolution that the SIMPO board adopted at our last meeting, supporting alternative funding for I-15 construction projects, specifically the bridges. It's very similar to the one you saw last month in Payson from Sun Corridor MPO, and I just wanted to present that to you today. Being that I'm a big supporter of funding bridges, being my last name, any way that you can fund bridges in an alternative manner, I think is a good way to look at it. Lastly, I just want to say we're looking forward to seeing you all in October at the Rural Transportation Summit in Prescott. And hopefully, I have seen some of you already signed up, so if you have any questions or need information on that, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Dwayne Idle?
So I'm Dwayne Itel with the City of Casa Grande, and I'm also here to present some resolutions on I-15, one from the City of Eloy and one from the City of Casa Grande. Of course, we worked closely with Irene Higgs, and she presented one last meeting for the Sun Corridor MPO. So I won't go into any details. I think Chris covered it and Irene did last meeting real well. But while I'm here, I'd also like to thank the board and ADOT staff. We have a location in Casa Grande where we've had 7 pedestrian fatalities in the last 6 years. In the last board meeting, you approved using federal safety funds for a pedestrian hybrid beacon. And originally, when we put in for that project, it wasn't going to be constructed until 2019. But I really want to thank ADOT staff because working together, we were able to move it up this year. I'm sure in the next 2 years, we probably would have had another pedestrian fatality. So I'm really glad ADOT worked with us, and we should have that up and running in the next few months. So thank you.
Thank you. Craig Brown.
Morning, Madam Chair and board members. Thank you for having us here today and having this open forum. I want to also thank you for all your efforts over this course of this last 6 months or so, which has been really tough considering the financial limitations that have been placed on us by this current administration. Hopefully we'll see something coming down the pike with the new president that will enhance our transportation funding here in the state of Arizona. What I'm here to talk to you about this morning is that we have finally come together, like we told you about back in Flagstaff a few months ago, is that the JPA agreement between the city of Prescott, Yavapai County Flood Control District, and SIMPO has come together to ask that we move forward in Highway 69's design into this coming year in the 5-year plan. We'd like to move forward as quickly as possible so that we can have the funding available for the actual construction in 2020. I think you have a copy of that JPA, and it's been signed off by all the entities involved. And this is another example of Yavapai County coming together for mutual benefit for everybody. And all the SIMPO members unanimously approved of this agreement and move forward because it affects all of our communities. Just wanted to ask you to please consider placing that under, I think it's item number 8, and placing that into the 5-year program. Thank you.
Thank you. David Wessel.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. David Wessel, manager for the Flagstaff Metropolitan Planning Organization. I'm here really to address item 8, the 4th Street bridges over I-40, and the request by the City of Flagstaff to see that placed in the 5-year construction program. My understanding is the JPA is being drafted The Community Development Director for the city and the district engineer have met and agreed to terms. As you know, the city's bringing $5 million and I believe is agreeing to pay 50% of any cost overruns on what looks like a $9 million project. I want to thank you for seeing the repair of those bridges explicitly placed into the program. I think that gives us much better standing in terms of reaching an agreement. I also want to thank you for the work that's happening on I-17 and I-40. Teeth rattling, I think, is the expression that we heard earlier today, and certainly it's happening in our neck of the woods, and glad to see that there's work underway in getting those roads repaired. So thank you.
Thank you. Barbara Poe? Excuse me.
Good morning, Chairman and directors. I don't know if you remember, but last year I was here speaking to you regarding the Corwin Drive and the I-95 signal. It's still not there. I questioned why isn't there? What's going on? That's my question on that. Also, I'm here against the roundabouts in Bullhead City. This design does not fit the effects for our recreational tourism, and Mojave County is not a metropolitan county. We need to know, and we need you to really statistically find out whether this is good for our city, our county, and the traffic flow. I have been a CAC committee member in Orange County for 12 years in transportation. I've seen this kind of design, and this is not fitting our particular regional area. Please do some critical thinking on this, some common sense that's going to work with our city. We have to match it up with what we have in our traffic flow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mark Montgomery?
Good morning. How are you?
Morning.
Great, good. How much time do I get? How much time? 3 minutes? Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm really excited. I love ADOT meetings. I've been to one in Surprise, and I watch you guys. I love what you're doing. I'm just so thankful that you guys have set it up where you're communicating to the public. Your communication through what you write on the boards. I'm from Maricopa, the city of Maricopa, where our great mayor of the city, the greatest city in the world, Maricopa, Christian Price is from, and he comes here all the time, and he talks about all the great things that you guys are doing. And I just want to focus on the communication and how your style is with Twitter. We're always sharing all your information all the time. And the way you communicate on the boards, I like to know who puts those very clever signs up there in Phoenix. It's just wonderful. And I just want to ask you if you could open up an Instagram account. I'm a media specialist in Pinal County, so I think Instagram is important. And another suggestion is the speeding lane. I feel like people don't know how to use the speeding lane. Could we put, I don't know, a fine, maybe $1,000 fine if you're driving too slow in the fast lane? Is that possible? Can we do something about drivers who abuse the fact that they're only going 2 miles over the speed limit? You know, can they please move over to the right? Can we ticket that? Is there enforcement on that? I think that's important. And again, the city of Maricopa, Pinal County, Maricopa County, I think I speak for most people. We are happy with what's going on. I know you know about 347. Please, 347. I saw a truck on fire yesterday, and that was crazy. That was crazy. Please help us out there too if you can. Thank you.
Thank you. Ava Corbett?
I wasn't going to speak, but I changed my mind anyway. Thank you for the open forum today and giving me the opportunity to voice my opinions. I live in Bullhead City, 2426 Topanga Drive, and we come from California about 10 years ago, and our roads suck in Mojave County. I think everybody will agree with that, especially Highway 95. It's an embarrassment. We have a brand new Walmart that just opened up 2 days ago, and I almost fell in a pothole the size of a sinkhole. Please, please, do not do the roundabouts. Spend the money on repairing 95. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any additional. I would like to thank again Mojave County and Kingman and Mayor Monica Gates for hosting us and the county for hosting us here today. It's been a privilege to be here. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to the district engineer's report. Alvin Stump.
Well, good morning, Madam Chair and Board. Just a quick district update. Right now on I-40, we have several projects going on between Seligman and Kingman. Most of them are bridge projects. We do have one rockfall project within the Willows area, and later this fall we will have a pavement press going on in that same area. And then on 93, we are just finishing up a pavement preservation and shoulder widening project up north from milepost 17 to 28. And then south of I-40, we do have a drainage project as well as another bridge rehab project just getting started. One of our focus areas is on 95 in the Bullhead City area to look at improving safety. Part of it is looking at access management, and another part of it is trying to identify a parallel corridor to relieve some of the traffic volumes off of 95. As far as the study area, we've been working on ideas for the past few months, and we will be presenting these concepts and proposed solutions to the public this fall. And also we will be pursuing HSIP funding for certain areas. And then about 10 years ago, Mojave County conducted a design concept report to look at a parallel corridor known as the Vanderslice study, or corridor. And so what we're looking at now is to do another study to see how we can maybe phase that in smaller, more affordable segments. The estimate was a little over 40 million, so knowing that funding is tight, looking at how we can break that up over time. Another safety project down in Lake Havasu that construct a center raised median from Kiowa Avenue past the strip mall area. This project is moving along. It's scheduled for this fiscal year. We are adding a signal at the far end to help with the left turn volumes. And as far as over here, the West Kingman interchange, we are looking forward to that going. As we talked about last night, there's several times when traffic backs all the way up to the 68 interchange. And so Right now, in fiscal year 18, we have $5 million for design, and then in 20, we have $10 million set aside for the right-of-way, and then in the development program, we have $55 million for the construction of it. And this is just the phase one, the Phoenix to Vegas segment. The Vegas to California would be at a future date. And then two other interchanges of interest are the Rancho Santa Fe TI and the Kingman Crossing TI. The one on the right is the Rancho Santa Fe, which connects to the airport area. This will support the industrial development in that area, as well as remove the truck traffic in that area from Andy Devine as well. And then to the left is the Kingman Crossing interchange, which will provide access to the hospital as well as the property in that area, which is suitable for commercial retail. So we have recently been meeting with the city and stakeholders to discuss partnerships and possible funding strategies. So that's something we're going to continue to do and see what we can work out. So with that, that's all I have. If you have any questions.
Alvin, I was wondering if you could just clarify for me. I was of the understanding that where the Kingman Crossing TI is at, that maybe the city had also put some drainage in or something. That wasn't anything that was addressed yesterday. I was just wondering if you could elaborate on that.
I'm sorry, the drainage?
Was there some type of infrastructure that the city of Kingman had done some time back, maybe?
Oh, yeah, there was one easement that we were talking about. Maybe some of that easement could go back to the city.
Thank you.
So that would be another discussion.
Does anyone have anything additional? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Now we'll move on to the director's report.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. The director sends his regrets. He had a conflict today. He could not be here. He had no final issues to report. If there are issues that you want the director to address at a future meeting, please let me know, and we'll make sure to get him on the agenda and prepared for him to present. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on now to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Is there? It's motion by Board Member LaRue, seconded by Board Member Hammond to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on now to the legislative report. Mr. Roach?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is kind of the quiet time with especially at the state level as well as federal level. There wasn't a lot to report, but there are a couple of things. From the ADOT omnibus bill, there was a provision made for ADOT to start negotiating with the Federal Highway Administration to take over the certification of the NEPA process, the National Environmental Protection Act process. That is ongoing. We've been coordinating with Federal Highways. They're conducting a session out with us later this year. We're on track that we think by basically next summer we should be able to move forward and get self-certified to conduct the NEPA process as a state lead agency. So that is ongoing. And at the national level, a couple little things. Recently, the administration has removed all the funding out of the program for Tiger grants, but they have started to look at other fast lane grants as well as a new criteria for an infra grant, which is the Infrastructure for Rebuilding America grant. So again, we're targeting key strategic corridors and key strategic improvements, that we can go after these grants and still have the opportunity to bring that funding into the program, which would then hopefully help us to address any other additional needs that are moving forward. Recently, the Federal Highway Administration came out with new guidance on the use of variable message boards for advertising as part of some of the states who have been looking at opportunities to generate revenue to help with the costs associated with their transportation initiatives. We had looked at putting advertisement on overhead signs and other programs. That has been rejected by the Federal Highway Administration, so we're back looking at what opportunities may be available. At that time, Madam Chair, that's kind of basic update of what we have. And as we continue to monitor what's going on locally as well as nationally, we'll be able to provide more updates as we see things start breaking loose, especially if Congress and the administration do address any transportation issues later this year.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Board Member LaRue.
can we ask a question?
Sure.
So Floyd, with Tiger grants, recently we'd had a lot of success or some moderate success. And I think some of that success was really because a lot of stakeholders came together and spoke as one voice and did not, present competing projects and, confuse those that make the decisions. Now that it seems like Tiger grants are going away and we're getting the tables being reset with, something new, do you think we'll still have that consolidated stakeholder speaking with one voice concept? Because that seems so successful before.
Madam Chair, Mr. LaRue, I actually think it's going to be more critical that we build that in the future. Part of, and we're still learning what this new infra grant, this Infrastructure for Rebuilding America grant, the intent of that grant from the basic information, the limited information we got so far, was more emphasis on taking existing local dollars and then the federal government enhancing or leveraging off of that. So before, when we were able to put together, like some of the Fast Lane grant previously and Tiger grants previously that we were able to be successful at, we usually had a match somewhere between 20 to 50%, closer to about that 20% of local funds, and then the rest would be federal funds. This administration now under this grant process is really looking at the locals bringing a greater percentage of funds and taking those funds and enhancing it with a portion of federal funds, but then using that to leverage into more infrastructure. So I think being able to target partnerships, especially, let's take for instance Interstate 15, which people talked about. Can we work closer with Utah and Nevada on doing something on that to come together to target a corridor improvements there? Along Interstate 10, with MAG's input and the State Transportation Board's input and maybe some other local government input, could we start building a partnership that will show that we're bringing funds locally, and then therefore you, federal government, the funds you give really enhance this? So I think it's going to be more critical that we do that. What I don't believe we really sat down and looked at is how competitive will that be for these other partners? If everybody's got a great amount of need, how much are they going to be willing to partner with us, because they've got to bring more money into these? So strategically, I think the projects you go after really, to be competitive, really have to show strong partnership, but they have to show a strong commitment to help fund.
No, that's good information. So that could create the angst on the local level as they're trying to allocate to their highest and greatest needs. So, well, keep us surprised. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
If there's no further questions on that, we'll move on to the financial report. Christine. Welcome back, and you've got a smile on your face, so is that good news?
I try to just come with a smile each time to keep you guessing the whole time. Good morning, Madam Chair, board members. My morning started out with sitting down with Mr. LaRue and Board Member Stratton, and one of the questions Mr. LaRue asked is, do you have good news for us today? And I said, kind of. So,
and luckily my breakfast was over by the time you said that, so.
So in the spirit of kind of, we have finished our FY17, the FY17 numbers are in, and we have eclipsed $1.4 billion in HERF revenues. That has been a long time coming, and the $1.4 billion is the good news. The fact that that is only 1.7% higher than FY 2007 revenues is the part that makes it the kind of good news, because we have just reached our 2007 revenue levels in FY 2017. So, and during that same period, maybe I shouldn't have put all these little fascinating facts together, but during that same period, we have experienced 10.7, over that same period, 10.7% of population growth. But personal income growth over that same period also 33% growth over that same period. So what we're basically coming down to is we are not seeing the growth that we have experienced historically. Oh, we went back a slide. Yes, we went back all the way to 2007, so let's catch back up. So overall, our forecast, I'm sorry I can't give you more exciting news, but $1.4 billion is something to be thankful for. With regards to our forecast, we were pretty much on target. We were a little bit behind, 0.7% behind our forecasts, and we experienced about 3.6% growth on the year. In the regional area road fund, we again crested over another number. We've gone over $400 million in regional area road fund revenues this year, with about 4.3% growth. We were just a little over forecast on that. Moving on to I have nothing to report on the federal aid program, but I am happy to report that a couple of board meetings ago, you authorized us to proceed with a grant anticipation note issue of $76 million. That is right on schedule. Next week, we will be presenting to the rating agencies, Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and Fitch. So that is moving right along, and we will be going to market with those bonds at the end of August, 29th, 30th, 31st time period. With that, aviation fund, just a brief report on that. That we have finally gotten that fund under control, I would say, and the deferred payments, all but one has been made. And we are making payments on that remaining, and we are now once again in the process of authorizing projects again, which I believe Greg will speak to in MPD. So, with that, if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Board Member Stratton.
As you spoke about we're starting to fund again, I believe there was 2 projects today.
Mm-hmm.
Were
Yes,
those 2 that were on the list that we had to shelve? A couple of years ago, I think there was 20-some projects that we had to take off the books and not fund because we didn't have the money after the legislature took the balance out. Are these 2 projects from that list, or are these 2 that are brand new and were not on that old list that we got rid of?
Chairwoman Beaver and Board Member Stratton, I do not have the answer to that. I'm going to defer to Greg, and hopefully I just deferred to him a question he knows the answer to, but I apologize. I do not know the answer to that.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anything further?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move now on to Modal Planning Division report. Greg.
Madam Chair, board members, I have a hard time with the multimodal too, so it's an excuse for the cough. I'm trying to get over a cold and it's been taking me a while. We have a couple of items on aviation. Again, we're going ahead and approving projects coming through for the grants. The 2 that we have on for today are
I hate to cut in, but I'm confused. Are we on item 6 or item 7?
I was just trying to answer the question that was asked previously.
We're still on item 6.
And you're going to answer the question that really relates to item 7?
Are you wanting to kind of merge the two together? Is that what you're trying to do?
I can just keep that off till the next item.
I just wanted to make sure we were all clear on what we were on, but I'll defer to the chair.
Okay, if we'll just go ahead and hold off on that until we get to item 7, unless
That's
we
fine.
kind of just,
Aviation's part of the multimodal, so that's why I was going through what we're doing as part of multimodal.
That's fine.
well, if there's no objection, I think maybe we should just go ahead and make it inclusive all in one, and we can go ahead and just identify items 6 and 7 that we're kind of merging them together, and you can give your report, and then we can go ahead and either take action or not take action on the part that has to do with item 7.
Madam Chair, that's fine. I'll just go ahead and go through. The first item that I had on the list was aviation. So we are proceeding now with dispersing funds for the federal, state, local program. And the 2 projects that we currently have that are being approved through the PPAC are part of that grant program. Those are not projects that have been delayed. Those are projects that are coming through. The federal grants were granted, and we're providing the match for those projects. So,
Madam Chair.
Board Member Stratton.
I believe when it was recommended to postpone the 20-plus projects, whatever the number was, one of the questions I had at that time was, would the people that were on that list that we had postponed have any preferential treatment or come back on the list when we had the funds? And that was going to be discussed with finance and the aviation department, and I don't believe we ever truly sorted that out. And I'm just wondering if those people that we delayed now can start applying again, or were these on the list, or where are we at?
Board Member Stratton, Chairman. What we currently have is 3 grant programs. So what's being funded currently is the federal, state, local program. The state local program, as well as the asphalt pavement management program, those 2 are not being funded, but they'll be coming back online in 2019 and 2020 respectively. At that point in time, any projects that have been delayed will come through. We are, in fact, requesting or suggesting to all of our airport entities to go ahead and apply for grants so that we can track those and have a list put together, so 1, we can make sure that projects are hitting as quick as they possibly can once we do get funding, and 2, to make sure that if we have projects that have gone from being a very minor project to becoming a major project because the funding wasn't there during that time, we need to know that's happening so that we can assist with that funding. Yes.
So, Madam Chair, Mr. Stratton, if I could, I want to make sure I got this clear. The projects we deferred before were the projects that were only funded out of the state aviation grants. The projects that have continued and the ones that are continuing today are grants that were approved by the federal government, and we're just providing the local match. So that state aviation grant program and the runway management program, that's what was deferred last time. Those projects, when we bring the program forward in 2019, as Mr. Byers just said, then those projects that were deferred before, those locals, if they still want those projects in, they'll come in and then we'll start working on those. But that's a separate grant program than the ones we're asking to complete today. The ones today are the federal program, which they got approval from FAA, and we just provide the local match. So the state grant program is the one that's still deferred.
Okay, I appreciate the explanation, Floyd. The only thing I would ask is those projects that were deferred, once we have the money, if those people that were deferred could be contacted and notified that they could reapply for grants.
Madam Chair, Mr. Absolutely, and that's what we talked about last time when we did deferral. The board had asked for that guidance and consideration, and that's what we need to make sure that we're planning on that when we move forward. So I'll leave that to Greg and his team to take that.
Is that clear? We will be, those projects were never, they were deferred, but they've never been lost. So those projects are still on our books. And yes, they do have preferential treatment per se.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Board Member LaRue.
So I appreciate, Steve, you bringing that up, because that was my recollection as well, that when this program restarts, there is a dialogue back with the board to say, here is how we're restarting it, here are our general policies, here's the communication piece that's going out to all of the affected member agencies. And I at least had an expectation that there would be that conversation back with the board on the restart of that program.
So it sounds like what we're asking is to have that on a study session agenda at a future.
Madam Chair, Mr. LaRue, absolutely. That's what I was going to suggest, is we'll bring that back. Maybe even a regular session like this, have Greg and his team, as they're ready, outline the steps moving forward, the timeline for that. So we'll bring back into a future meeting.
Well, because my recollection was a little bit different too. It seemed to me that when we deferred those, you made contact, if I'm correct, with each of those agencies, and each of those agencies said there was some deficiency in their paperwork or something at the time as why those were actually deferred, because they weren't even at a point where they could, am I wrong on that? Excuse me, I'm looking to Christine, I guess.
No, ma'am. The reasons for the deferrals were not a matter of paperwork. They were literally a matter of cash flow. And the point that I was kind of standing here to the side, when we did that reassessment of the fund, we looked at all of the projects that were in the program underway, those projects that were underway, and those projects that were programmed for the future. And we took that, and those were projects that this board had approved. We took those projects and we cash flowed all of those projects. We built them all into the cash flow to see when we could start doing future additional programming. So nothing was, we did not remove projects. We just delayed and elongated the time over which those projects, we would be able to reimburse for those projects. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes, it does, and I don't know if for the other board members possibly, is there a way that we could get a copy of a list of those that were deferred?
We can.
Okay.
Those deferrals are all but one of those, of the airports. All but one of the airports has been, the deferrals have been paid as of June 30th. There's only one remaining deferral, and that is being paid out over time.
Madam Chair and Christine, I want to make sure, I don't want to talk to everyone. She's not talking about the deferred payments. She's talking about new grants that were deferred. So you're talking about the grants that have been approved and the payments were being deferred. But because we did not have the cash flow, we had like the 19 and 20 new grant requests. We deferred the new grants. And that's the status, I'm guessing you want the status on, where we're at when those new grants come back. And that's what Greg and his team need to pull together. But it has to match Christine's cash flow for the aviation grant, or again, it will not be a sustainable program.
I apologize if I confused the matter at all.
No.
I'm blaming Greg on this.
Okay, we're going to let you carry it today. I appreciate it.
We're straightened out now.
There's no blame. This is no judgment. But we need to follow through as you had asked. That is what you'd ask, and that's what staff will be prepared to do. And we'll get that on an agenda as soon as we can, so we can give that update.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have additional questions they would like to ask? Okay. So are we now moving on? Do you have anything additional for the 6 part of this 6 and 7, or are we moving on to 7 where we can actually?
I do have a couple other items.
Okay.
In the transit forum that we have, we're currently issuing preliminary grant acceptance letters. We have our application into the FTA that went in this month. we should be hearing back from the FTA on that grant so that we can take the preliminary grant acceptance letters that went out to approximately 80 to 90 providers. We can make those final. So as soon as we get that appropriation through FTA, then we'll start running through that. And that should be occurring within the next 2 months. So we also have a long-range plan. We're in the process of developing a draft plan document, and we're looking at bringing that to the board in September or October for your review. We also have the freight plan. The freight plan is currently in the final draft. We met with the freight plan steering committee last week and got their review and comments, and we're looking at trying to bring that to the board in September for the final on that. The other things that we have the selected studies. You've heard Alvin talk about several studies that we're looking at. Those are internal studies. We made those preliminary selections 2 weeks ago, and we'll finalize those next week. So we'll have all those statewide internal studies going for MPD. That's all I had on item 6.
Thank you. Does anyone have any additional questions on that portion? Okay, we'll now move on to the part under PPAC. The staff presentation for PPAC recommendations of action to the board, including consideration of changes of the FY 2017-2021 State Transportation Facilities Construction Program.
Madam Chair, just before we start, I want to identify that there's a typo in the agenda. It's actually 2018 to 2022 is the program, not the 17 to 18. So we had made that mistake. But Greg will talk to the projects he's talking to are reference to the 2018 to 2022 year.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that, because I did go through and the pages 126 and 27 do reflect the FY year 2018-2022.
Madam Chair, board members, we have 2 projects. Both of these are airport projects. One of them is for the city of Lake Havasu. It is an electrical project that we're looking at, and that is a FAA-sponsored grant of $40,000. The sponsor is putting in $1964, and the state is putting in $1963 for a total of $43,927. The second project we have is for Flagstaff Airport. That project is a runway reconstruction project that has an FAA grant of $7,890,485. The sponsor is putting up $387,332, and the state's matching at $387,332 for a total of $8,665,149. Those are the 2 projects that we currently have up for your approval.
Do we have a motion to accept and approve the airport projects, items 7A and 7B as presented?
Second.
Motion by Board Member Sellers, seconded by Board Member Cusperson. If there's no additional discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move on to item 8, which is the project modifications to the FY 2018-2022 5-year Transportation Facilities Construction Program. Dallas Hammett, please. Thank you.
Morning, Madam Chair. Lynn's going to get me on board here. So I was asked to prepare an update on 2 projects that had discussion last month in Payson. And so I'm going to go through this. The first one is on State Route 69. This is in the city of Prescott. You can see the limits of the project. on the screen, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit and show you. So if you know the area, there's a Walmart as you're approaching from Prescott Valley into Prescott and the car dealer, and then you go down a hill, past Lowe's, and into the Frontier Village. That area, we go from 3 lanes to 2 lanes back to 3 and sometimes more. It's a bottleneck. The locals have identified this as a concern and have come, not just identified it, come with money and said, hey, we'd like to work with the department to improve this. So where are we at to date? A scoping document was completed a couple of years ago. As the project developed over time, there will be some modifications to that scoping document, but they're fairly minor. The major elements of the scoping document will remain. As of last week, July 12th, we did complete a joint project agreement, a JPA that all areas signed, and as Chris mentioned, Chris Bridges earlier, it has multiple signatures, and I'll probably forget somebody, but with the MPO, the county, and the county flood control, and the city of Prescott have all signed on to that agreement. It was executed July 12th. With that, we have the opportunity to bring on a designer. We will go through ADOT's on-call, bring that in, and we should be able to have a designer on board by late October. One of the things that will give us, by the time we're in our next programming cycle, we will be at a point where we can give a good cost estimate, exactly what this project will cost, and then we need to program. Right now, we have a rough estimate from the scoping, but with those modifications, we're between 2 different folks that briefed me, a couple $1 million different. So once we get going in design, we can get that, we'll get to a 30% design and have good numbers that we could actually program very well. Before I go to the Flagstaff project, any questions on the 69 project?
Madam Chair.
Board Member Stratton.
You say you're a couple $1 million apart. What's the maximum it's looking like?
$10 million.
And the locals are bringing how much?
Right now, only thing that the locals have brought in, they brought the full amount for the design. They're looking at future years. My understanding, I don't know if Chris is still here, $1.2 million, 2 years of your he knows theirs better than I do. But we do not have an agreement started on the construction yet, only on the development and design.
We currently have $650,000 programmed in fiscal year '20, and then we also have flexibility in fiscal years '21 and on that we can still move things around. If we needed additional funds, we could bring that back to our board and add another $650,000, so potentially another 1.3.
So that would be a little over $2 million you guys would bring at that point?
All right, $1 million for the design and potentially 1.3 for construction.
And did your $10 million, Dallas, include design, or was that construction only?
I believe that was a complete project total, so it would be design and construction. Again, with the change in the scoping, there's not a detailed estimate, so a lot of it is gut feels from experts, but we haven't fully scoped the project that it will be designed, so we don't have exact numbers at this time.
So going through this detail, obviously it's something that I'm assuming the state engineer's office agrees needs to be done, since you're doing the scoping and you're looking into the project in detail.
This is a need that we can support. At the same time, there's lots of needs, and within the system, when we bring this into, if we brought it into this program or any other, we're going to bump out another project that we felt was that had a need as well. So we haven't prioritized it above some of the others. And I don't know if I'm answering your question, but if we do this project, we're bumping out, say, a pavement preservation project that's already in the program or some other project that's in there. I can say that it is a need. The priority is where we would have to have more discussion once we know the full dollar amount.
Madam Chair, if I can continue.
Yes, Board Member Stratton.
The monies that we had the telephonic meeting on the 347 and did move some funding around, wasn't there about $4.5 million left that came back to us because of the local share that was going into that?
Chairman Beaver, Board Member Stratton, I need to look at those details. I don't remember them off the top of my head.
Madam Chair, Mr. Stratton, yes, as part of that program, they did reduce the money, rolled it into the contingency. What I don't know, and I think we would need to research, is has that gone to cover current projects? I mean, I can't tell you that there's money just sitting there without understanding if that money has already been reprogrammed into current projects.
And Madam Chairman, if it was, it is this year's money that we would not be prepared to spend on this project because we haven't started design as of yet.
Right now, I think you're targeting 2020 is the construction?
Madam
Design
Chair,
starting 18 and then...
That is correct.
And then, so you'd be looking at studying projects in 2020 or 2021, and then how would that affect those projects listing at that time as you look at bringing it into the program?
That is correct, yes.
So if we were to fund this, we wouldn't have to move it all out of 1 year. It could be several years.
Madam Chair, Member Stratton, the year that we fund the construction, we have to have all the money for this project in that year. So if it goes into FY 2020, in FY 2020, we have to have the full amount for that project.
One of the things, and I'm sure all of you have realized this through the past meetings, is as we receive offers, if you will, from these entities, whether it's Flagstaff or Simple or the town of Maricopa, I think it's terribly important that we recognize that and try and fund these projects if they are a priority to make our dollars stretch. And in order for these organizations to continue with their design and programming their money for future years, I believe it takes a commitment on our part so that they understand it will be done. So I would really like to see this added to the 5-year program in 2020. If we don't have contingency monies because it's a new year, this is the first month of the new year, then at this point I would ask that we look at other projects and maybe moving some money around.
Madam Chair, I guess if I could just comment generally on that, I think that's a real great opportunity as we talked about for partnering, and especially the comments earlier that, like Mr. LaRue had brought up, when you look at the national level, if that's what Congress and the administration want to see as more local leverage for the federal government to come in with funding, I think it's great to do that. To me, again, the comment here is timing. We're talking about trying to fit a project into fiscal year 20 when we're in 2018, and we still got 2 programming cycles that may allow us to see revenues increase a little bit in the future where this could be brought in without affecting a project. We just don't know that till we get to those programming cycles now. If you fit it in now, that means you're probably displacing something. But yet, we're not delaying this project because design is on its way, the study is on its way. Is there a measure of, now that we know this is a priority, and again, we want to work with the board, we want to work with the locals, as we look to bring in the construction in 2 years, could the next programming cycle be the time to bring it in where we could then see what the new estimates are, revenues, we could see what, if projects are starting to shift around because of other deferrals so that projects available? As Dallas said, the contingency fund we have now is only for 18. We don't touch the contingency fund for 20. So there's no extra funds in 20 at this point until we make programming changes. So again, I think the question is, and the board needs to ask this question, when you want to adjust the priority or you want to look at those partnerships of bringing projects in the program, when's the best time to do that and not delay those projects? we could do this in the next programming cycle, and theoretically, maybe there might be an increase in funds, or maybe there might be something where we know projects are slipping, and that opens up the funding, and therefore we have no impact on any other project, other than what was already occurring.
Madam Chair? And I don't disagree with what you're saying, Floyd. I understand it. And my concern is when we're dealing with an organization, in this case Simple, if we don't make the commitment, then how can they set their yearly budgets up in the future? How can they know, as Chris said, there could possibly be another $650,000? But if we haven't made a commitment of funding on our part, then how can they let that money sit and not do anything with it? They need some guidance, I believe, and maybe Chris can elaborate on this or what their process is, but my concern is if we don't make the commitment, then how can they commit their dollars to future projects? They may want to reallocate them because they don't know if we're going to fund our portion.
Madam Chair, Member Stratton, one thing to remember, and Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, the monies that they're committing are FY21 and beyond funds, because the money that they're working on the design are their current years. So the monies that they have available are FY21 and beyond. So that's the first that their monies are available. With those, that's their schedule of their funds coming into this project.
I understand that, but my concern is if we don't make a commitment, then how can they hold those funds and not have entities want to put other projects up for those funds that they could do themselves? So I feel very strongly that we have to, especially on a project like this where there's been multiple fatal crashes, it affects a lot of Arizonans. I think we have to, if this is what the board wants to do and leverage dollars, as it seems to be the trend from the federal government down, then I think we have to step up and show a commitment. That's my personal opinion.
I would like to ask if Chris could just respond to that question about the 2021 and the...
Sure. Currently, in our transportation improvement program, we do have committed $650,000 in fiscal year 20. That's already been approved by the TAC and the board. What I would need to do, what Dallas is talking about, those years 21, 22, 23, and so on, we have to go back to the board to add fiscal year 21 to this project in order to make it the full 1.3 million. So we do have 20 currently today as it stands. I'd be happy to take it back to our board. Supervisor Brown's here, he's the chairman of the SIMPO board, and I'll be able to talk to him right away about this and get that on an agenda in September. So that's where we stand with our funding.
Madam Chair?
Okay, Board Member Hammond has a question, I think.
It's not a question. It's not a question. It's more of just an observation. I think the board is very much in favor of this project, but I also try to pay very close attention when I hear any project discussed as to whether ADOT is not listening, ADOT is not properly prioritizing, ADOT is not properly putting projects into the system in a priority that they feel is responsible. And if I have not heard on this project, or pretty much any project, that ADOT's not listening. So when I hear projects are going to get bumped that ADOT thinks might have a higher priority to this project or any project, I guess as a board member, I'm okay as long as it's coming out of the same district, if we're bumping projects. But if they're coming out of other districts, then you kind of get my attention as a board member from Southern Arizona. So I guess what I want to hear from Chris or anybody is that ADOT's not listening, ADOT's not being responsive. We should override a process that seems to be functioning very, very well. I'm sure there's times when it doesn't. But that's what I'm really attentive to.
before I, as a board member, at this meeting, for example, if it came to it, decide to vote to do something that staff is not prepared to recommend. So I'm listening very attentively as to whether ADOT staff is not listening and being attentive, because that seems to be what you might be suggesting, and I would like to hear if that's actually the case.
Board Member Hammond, that is completely not the case. In fact, Dallas, Alvin, all the district staff, and all the staff in ADOT have been completely responsive. They listen to our concerns. They work with us. In fact, we have an excellent partnership. So, in no way do I, want to come across as ADOT's not listening. But, unfortunately, the times that we are in with the tough dollars, it's a tough ask. And everybody has their projects. I realize that. It doesn't matter if it's me or Mayor Price or anybody else showing up here. We all have our regional priorities, and we're trying to relay those to you, and hopefully we get to have those in there. I think we've made great strides on this. Like I said, Dallas and Alvin have been tremendous on this. We're far enough along where our local communities have thrown in their cash as well, which is also tough for them. I think we're in a good position here. So I would like to keep moving forward with our great partnership, and I don't want to come across as we're not.
Thank you.
A comment I would like to make with regard to this is, I guess we've been aware of this project for a while now, and when we were going through the process and had the study session for the 2018-2022, I remember at the very end there were some projects that were added in. It seemed to me, is it about 40 million? There was money found, and so there were projects added in. I'm thinking it was at the study session down in Phoenix where this occurred. And there were some projects added in at the end because of this found money. And so I'm thinking, I guess my question is, this is something we were aware of. Did we feel that those other projects that were added in at the end, basically, bad choice of words, but trumped this project?
Madam Chair, and if I get off track, someone can help me, but one of the things to remember every year when we present a program, our long-range plan is a funding strategy between capacity projects or expansion, modernization, or preservation. We had a target to get to a minimum number of preservation dollars, about 260 at that time. In each year, we've spent more, and which would leave in Greater Arizona about $25 million in expansion projects. Each year, we've spent more than $25 million on expansion. So when those monies came available, my memory of those projects, and I'd have to look at each one, but the vast majority, I can say with confidence, were a preservation project that we were able to move forward to meet that goal that the board had set. Hey, this is our funding strategy. We want this percentage in preservation, this percentage in modernization, and this percentage in expansion. And so those projects that came in were preservation projects that were in future years that we were just able to advance to the current year.
And Madam Chair, I think that's a key point to remember. It's fiscal year, and that 40 million, if you remember, there was the 25 million the legislature gave for 189. There was some of the measure of being able to bring in some preservation, but all that was in this first year, 2018. And again, we're if you look at 69, we did not recommend putting money in 69 with using that money because it wasn't ready in 2018. Design started. We're looking at now, if it's ready for construction in 2020, then we will have time to bring that into the program through our normal process to adjust when we update each year to the revenues that we have available and to look at what projects need to be prioritized in that year. So this board will have the opportunity to continue to focus on the priority of the projects you want each fiscal year as we move forward through the programming cycle.
And if I'm correct, though, the question or the concern that Board Member Stratton's bringing up is because they're moving along and they've got commitment for certain dollar amounts right now, if we don't build this into the program, are they going to be able to have that ability to say, okay, this project's on track, we're needing more dollars? And so I think that's where the question is on their part, is that they're needing some kind of action from our board that says, you know, we're going to support this, and then they can go forward with developing whatever it is to get their funding portion.
Madam Chair, I can't speak to what Mr. Bridges and Simple need or want. That's up to them. I'm just trying to react to the decisions this board makes relative to our 5-year program, and make sure that whatever you're guiding us or you're directing us to do as staff, we can look at you and say it's fiscally constrained and it's the correct thing to do given the programming requirements that we have.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Board Member Stratton.
First off, I'd like to follow up on Board Member Hammond's comment that we shouldn't be moving. I'm not suggesting we take money out of MAG or PAG or anything else if we fund this, that it should come out of Greater Arizona. But as Greater Arizona, other than possibly the RTA in Pinal County if it passes in November, doesn't have the option for help from a MAG or a PAG. And when we get the opportunity to leverage dollars and make those stretch in Greater Arizona for a priority or a warranted project, I really believe we have to pay attention to that. Secondly, if we'll go back to the conversation in Payson, we don't like to do anything contingent, and I agree with that. We shouldn't. I'm going to ask that this be tabled until September. I'd like for Simple to consider what you suggested and see if they will make those commitments for future years. And I think our scoping document will be a little bit further along. We may have some better information, and we may know a little bit more about contingency funds as we go through this first quarter of FY18. So I'd make a motion that this tabled until the September meeting.
Madam Chair, Mr. Stratton, we don't need a motion for that. You just guide us and say that this will be a future topic. That's all we need.
I'd like to see it on the September meeting and discussion, and see what Simple has done and see where we stand with the scoping document and such.
Madam Chair, Mr. Stratton, Chris system for me, October would be better because with their meeting schedule, they won't be prepared to do that before October.
Then I'll ask that it come back in November, as I may be out of the country in October, and this is certainly a project I want to have input on.
So as I understand it, the request is to bring this back in November.
Madam Chair, that's correct. We'll agenda this item in November, and then I'll be out of the country, by the way. So. Good luck, Dallas.
Where are you going?
I haven't figured out yet. Believe me, I'm finding a place.
Book
a
a
place
flight
with a beach.
Book a flight for 2.
Okay, so it looks now like we're moving on to the second.
Okay.
You have
yes.
another item.
The
The
second
second
item.
half of.
Right. Okay.
The second half of the item 8, which now would be the 4th Street Bridge replacement in the city of Flagstaff.
So we're going to move north. The 4th Street Bridge is a bridge over Interstate 40 in Flagstaff. You can see the big map, and then I'm going to zoom in on it. There's actually 2 bridges over Interstate 40. The ADOT was in the process of doing a preservation project on those bridges. The city of Flagstaff approached the department and said, while you're doing this work, it would make sense to widen these bridges to add for future capacity of 4th Street. And as you can see from the aerial, that to the north there is a widening of the existing roadway. ADOT had a scoping document completed. They are reconsidering that scoping because the original scoping document was just to preserve the existing roadway or the existing bridges. What do we need to do if we want to expand? One thing we could do is rehab the existing and widen. The other thing we could do is reconstruct the whole thing. One of the advantages of reconstructing the whole thing is we can account for future widening of I-40. Someday we're going to need, Audra would tell me it's today, but someday we're going to need 3 lanes in each direction on I-40. And if we're going to put money into a bridge structure, it makes a lot of sense that that new bridge structure can span 3 lanes. So we're in that process. At the same time, Audra, the district staff, are working with the city of Flagstaff, getting agreements on cost. Right now, a rough estimate is around $9 million. ADOT looking at $4 million, the city $5 million. And they have a draft ideas for a JPA that have not been executed, but they are moving forward. Once that can happen at the same time, we'll finish the scoping to know, yes, it's going to be a new set of bridges, or we can work with a preservation. That decision should be made in the next, I'll make sure, but I think it will be done within the next month, what type of structures we're going to do. So that project is moving forward through the negotiations of the JPA, and the scoping will be completed early this year. This fiscal year.
Board Member Stratton.
Dallas, if I'm correct, didn't we have $2 million budgeted for repairs?
That was in the preservation plan for that. That was that would be part of our $4 million if we bring that forward,
Right.
yes.
And what year was that for?
I believe it was 2020, do you remember? 2020.
Okay. Thank you. I'd ask that this come back to the board at the same time as the simple project comes back. I think things will be a lot further along. JPA may be signed, your scoping or your recommendation of replacement or not would be done. And I think it'd be appropriate to address both of these. It's actually the same situation. We have an entity coming forward with a lot of money, and it would cost ADOT very little in addition to that. So I'd like to discuss it at that time again.
And do I understand we don't need any kind of a motion on this, but we would like both of them brought back for the November meeting?
That's correct, yes, ma'am. We're good. They'll be on the agenda.
If there's nothing further, are you, would you
We're done
like
with
to share
item 8?
anything additional?
Not on item 8, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Chair?
Yes.
So
Board Member
Dallas, that
Sellers.
would not delay this project in any way by delaying our decision on this until November?
Madam Chair, Member Sellers, no, it would not.
Okay, if there's no additional questions, we'll move on to item 9, the state engineer's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As far as state engineers report, currently we have 116 projects under construction, totaling $1.527 billion. 10 projects were finalized in April, totaling $20 million, and year to date we have finalized 133 projects. Another item in the state engineers report, I was asked to brief the board on our safety corridors. Right now, we have 4 safety corridors throughout the state. Some may ask, well, how did you pick these 4? Why only 4? We work very closely with DPS, the Department of Public Safety, as well as the Governor's Office of Highway Safety on identifying corridors that had a large number of crashes as well as a large number of citations. DPS brought that information in. And the big thing is behavior. We believe on these corridors, behavior is causing a number of the crashes. So as you see the corridors in this area on I-40, and I call it between the 93s. So here in Kingman, 93, as you go north, you take I-40, and then you go south to Wickiup. That segment of I-40 is one of our safety corridors. The segment of I-10, as you approach the tunnel, is a safety corridor. The segment of I-10 as you leave the 202 in Chandler and go through the Gila River is another safety corridor. And then our last safety corridor is also in the metro area on US 60. In these areas, DPS is committed to extra law enforcement. That's one reason we can't expand it to multiple or a lot more areas, because it does expend multiple resources. We participated by getting some signs, as well as the Governor's Office of Highway Safety brought money to the table in this effect. So again, we're working to educate the drivers and put increased enforcement. Our key things were our attempt to make save lives by reducing unacceptable behavior. They're going to be ticketing very close to the speed limit. Their signs say zero tolerance, and I have had reports on I-10 that people have been cited for less than 5 over at different times. We're also target areas, as I said, where we had a large number of fatal crashes and where there was a number of citations based on behavior, speeding, lack of restraint, and impairment. So that's how we identified our safety corridors. We're evaluating them over the next 2 years. We're about 9 months into it. We will evaluate it. After that period, we plan to continue the program, but we may switch corridors. Did we make a difference? And if we did, maybe we can find additional funds to put more law enforcement on another corridor.
Excuse me. I would like to ask you a question with regard to those safety corridors. 2 points. With the law enforcement, for those particular areas, have you identified, or have they identified for our use, which I'm assuming if they've been identified as safety corridors, they have, but the accidents and things that have happened on those roads, is it speeding, alcohol-related, drug-related, texting on a phone? Like what is causing those particular areas to have a higher level of problem than other areas? One, and two, I'm just curious, do those stretches have the overhead signage that are going up around the state?
Madam Chair, the answer to the first part is yes to all of them. These are identified because of behavior issues, a behavior of driving too fast, and that is the common thread throughout all of these 4 corridors. There's excessive speed. But there is also impairment. They have details. They're putting details to do stops to see if there's impaired drivers. They're adding that to this. They identify distracted driving. Right now, we don't have a primary law that we can stop for distraction, other than if you're being careless. You know, we don't have a stop for I was texting or I'm distracted. But if you're making erratic lane changes, they can stop you for that. They're looking for those behavior areas. Second question, overhead message boards. In all of these areas, we do have a number of overhead message boards that we can alert motorists for any number. You know, I was just in Star Valley 2 nights ago with the city council, and we worked with them after the Payson meeting to get on the message board to warn drivers to slow down. If you remember, a few years ago, they had photo enforcement through the town. That went away, and they saw an increase in speed. They put up some speed feedback signs, so it says your speed is, and it flashes at you, and we use our message boards, and they were very happy that we're using that for safety purposes to help speed through their town, control behavior.
In addition, kind of for the benefit of board members, if all of you have not been over to the TOC, because that's where those message boards the messages that are coming out on those boards come from there to begin with. If you haven't had the opportunity to have that tour yet, you might see if they can set it up for you. I think maybe Jesse and Steve, you haven't been there yet. Very interesting, though.
Madam Chair, I have one more, and on that note, I'd be happy to take anyone to the TOC if it's your first time or 10th time. We were constantly making changes. A couple of years ago, we brought law enforcement in. That's been a game changer. Having them sitting right next to our operators, communicating not only to our staff, but through their staff, and they can see what's going on before their troopers are getting on site, has been a game changer in the Valley, and we're working to increase that throughout the state where we have cameras.
Well, and I'd also add, I think that's where the Twitter feed is coming out of too, for weather and all of that. So it's just, it's really, I think, a plus for the citizens of Arizona, because it just adds a level of oversight and safety that we haven't maybe had in the past.
Thank you, Madam.
Madam Chair?
Board Member Sellers?
Yeah, I think I'm the one that has to have this on an agenda. And I guess one of my questions is, do we know of other areas that have done something like this and what kind of results they've gotten? And I guess my other question is, that people keep asking me, is why don't we set speed limits that we're willing to enforce rather than just having certain areas where we're going to enforce the speed limits?
Madam Chair, Member Sellers, it has been done in other states, and we have seen success. Other states have different laws. So as you approach Grants, New Mexico on I-40 between Gallup and Albuquerque, they have a safety corridor. One thing New Mexico allows through their legislature, if you're speeding or you're ticketed within a safety corridor, it's a double fine. We don't have that legislation that would allow it in Arizona, but they do have that, and they've seen some reductions in crashes in that area. There's, in the neighborhood of 10 states that we know of that have these safety corridors with a mixed area of success. As far as speed limits, a number of these areas, US 60 is a good example. The speed limit is posted at 65. When it's on the morning commute, you're lucky to go 45. But after that, we have a lot of pavement. It's very comfortable to drive, and probably your 85th speed average is 75 or above. It would not be prudent to sign that in an urban area at 75, even though we know that the 85th speed is 75. As far as enforcement, I think DPS would tell me that it's their availability of troopers, that they don't have enough to greatly enforce more than in these corridors. They are out there. I see them on the roads regularly, pulling people over, but they're limited on the numbers of troopers they have to put out there.
But just, it's something related to the safety issue, but I know this is the second time on that Corwin Drive in Bullhead City that it's come up. Is it possible we could just have, if Alvin could look into that and see?
Madam Chair, I'll make sure you get a briefing on that, the status of that project.
Okay, thank you.
And if I may, one thing that ties into our safety corridors, during holiday events, we've identified in these holiday corridors. So on holiday events, Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, we are putting extra enforcement. It's very similar to the safety corridors, but we know on holidays, I-17 is a challenge. I was on there on the 3rd for almost 2.5 hours trying to get to Phoenix to the airport. A rollover crash happened. 87 is another area, and I-10 between the whole link between Phoenix and Tucson. In addition to having the extra enforcement, again, we're working with law enforcement, we are staging equipment. So I put loaders, signs, and those things in strategic areas during that period. So if we do have a crash, we need to get people fast, I have the equipment already on site during those periods of time. So, and they have been confused because in the media they've called those safety corridors as well. But I just wanted to point out the difference between our holiday corridors, our specific times, versus the safety corridors are all the time. And that's all for the state engineer's
Thank
report.
you. I will. I think I had heard a comment with regard to because it actually flashes holiday corridor, and somebody said, well, the holiday's over. Well, it was like the day after, and I don't think things had gotten changed yet, but there was still a lot of traffic that was coming home, but it was just one of those comments that somebody had made about it. If there's nothing additional with regard to the state engineer report, we'll move on now to the construction contracts.
Madam Chair, thank you, and all the board, thank you for the approval of the items in the consent agenda. We do have some projects to talk about. I want to point out in the summary sheet, the year-to-date total, we have $445 million, almost $800,000 that are low bids. Our estimate was 441, we'll call it. We were within 1.1%. Starting next month, we will start the fiscal year over. I asked, because when I saw this yesterday, or day before yesterday, why is it, now we're in July in the next fiscal year, these were the projects that were advertised in the past year. But starting the next year, we'll start this table over and for the new fiscal year. But as for the year, we are within 1.1% total. And a lot of that change came in the last few months. We have seen more pricing volatility over the last few months. Item 10A, if we're ready, Madam Chair.
Yes.
This is a project in Flagstaff. It is a widening of a local street. And one of the things, I get information very fluid. So 5 minutes after the board meeting started, this project was originally listed asking the board to postpone. I'm going to have a different recommendation. Michelle said I will not go to jail if I recommend that, so I am going to move forward with it. On this project, the low bid was $538,000. The state's estimate was $490,200. It was over the state's estimate by $47,800, or 9.8%. One of the concerns that we were looking at on the postponement, since it is a local project, did they have the money for the extra funds? I did find out this morning they do. So my recommendation is not to postpone, but after reviewing the bids, that the department does believe this was a responsive and responsible bid and would recommend award to Fan Construction, Inc. And one note, if I'd had the information earlier, this would have been on the consent agenda because it's within those limits.
Okay, could I just have clarification? You said Fan Construction, and this is...
Oh, excuse me, it's contracting.
Fan Contracting, Inc.
Yes.
Okay. Motion by Board Member LaRue, second? Second by Board Member Cusperson to approve item 10A. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Opposed?
Blah. Okay, now we'll move on to item 10B.
Madam Chair, this is a project in La Paz County. It is a shoulder repair. The low bid was $1,361,893.08. The state's estimate was $900,361.55. It was over the state's estimate by $461,531.53, or 51%. We saw higher than expected for our concrete forts and mobilization. The county would, since they're on the hook for coming up with additional funds, have asked us to reject all bids. They'd like to take that, rescope it within the budget and re-advertise at a later date. So the recommendation is to reject all bids.
Is there a motion to accept
So
and
moved.
approve? Okay, thank you. Board Member Hammond's made a motion to accept and approve staff's recommendation to reject all bids. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Board Member Stratton. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 10C.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a project in the city of Glendale. It has some decorative pavement and lighting. The low bid was $595,000. The state's estimate was $477,867. It was over the state's estimate by $117,133, or 24.5%. The local has come up with the additional funds. The reason and the difference was some of the special pavers that were used in the grading for the pavement. It was a tight area. With the additional funds, the staff has reviewed the bids and believes the bid is responsive and responsible, and would recommend award to KAZ Construction, Inc.
Move to award.
Second.
Okay, motion to accept and approve staff recommendation for award the contract for item 10C to KAZ Construction was made by Board Member LaRue.
Can I ask a
Seconded
question?
by Board
Yeah.
Member Stratton.
I'd like to ask a question. You know, this is in the middle of the city, and you only got 2 to bid on it? Is that normal?
Not generally. I think with the lighting and the site work, it's a mix on who's going to be a prime. Is it going to be an electrical contractor or a paving contractor? I think as we put together projects or encourage locals, we need to look at that, because there's few that can do both those items of work. And remember, our contractors have to do at least 40% themselves. They can't sub out more than that.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion's to accept and approve staff's recommendation for item 10C. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 10D.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 10D is a multi-use path in the city of Litchfield Park. On this project, as we reviewed the bids, the low bidder submitted their DBE paperwork. It was found that they did not meet the DBE goal. None of the other 3 bidders submitted their DBE paperwork within the allotted times. With that, they are all non-responsive. So the staff's recommendation is to reject all bids, and we will re-advertise.
Madam Chair,
Board Member Stratton.
is this the project we received the letter on from Combs?
Madam Chair, Member Stratton, that is correct.
I have a couple of questions, if I may, then. Just curiosity. Is it that all bidders have to put their DBE in with the bid or within 5 days? Or if the apparent low bidder did not submit or didn't meet it, then the next bidder would have 5 days after notification to turn that in? Or does he have to turn in at the time of the bid, he or she?
Madam Chair, Member Stratton, it is all bidders have to turn in their DBE within 5 days of the opening. This did change right at the first of the year, and if you remember, I think we were in the Tucson area. We had a similar issue. I briefed the board at that time. At the same time, the department did a lot of outreach with our Association of General Contractors. They worked with us very closely on developing this bid. Our federal partners also worked with us. One of the recommendations was, one, to turn in all your stuff at bid time. There is some disadvantages for the contracting community with that. The other was the top 3 have to turn it in every time. The agency, the contractors had some concern with that. One, you're asking a disadvantaged business enterprise, give me paperwork and do this work, and you're not going to get the job because I was second or third. And they didn't think there was going to be compliance. So we worked out a compromise. Anyone who's going to be considered for the project has to turn it in, but there's no disincentive to the contractor if they don't. One thing to point out, to go to your question, before the start of this year, if we rejected number one, number two had 5 additional days. That's what changed within the spec, and that's where we were told we were non-compliant by FHWA with our current DBE process.
Madam Chair, if I do remember you asking us to postpone a bid so that the next lowest bidder could supply their DBE material, I believe. I didn't remember if it was prior to the first of the year or since the first of the year. But if we changed policies, did we advise all contractors? Do we give them a notice, or how was that handled?
So we work very closely with the Contractors Association. Our staff briefed at our joint luncheon. Their AGC went and briefed in their individual meetings because they were at the table when we drafted the new specification, as well as it's in our specification at least 3 times saying if you don't turn it in, you're non-responsive. So we did outreach, we sent out flyers, and in addition to this, every project the day after opening, our business engagement group sends an email out to every bidder saying turn in your DBE paperwork. So they're reminded. We did outreach on the project, or on the process, on the new specification.
And this is the first time it's come up since the first year change of policy?
As a protest, Mr. Trenton, that is correct.
That's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I would move to accept
Okay.
the recommendation to reject all bids.
Okay, motion by Board Member LaRue. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Hammond to accept and approve the staff's recommendation to reject all bids. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 10E.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project is in the city of Peoria. It's to install closed-circuit television cameras for their freeway operation. The low bid was $242,484.42. The state's estimate was $211,057.50. It was over the state's estimate by $31,426.92, or 14.9%. Almost the whole difference was in the electrical conduit price. We have reviewed the bids, and the department believes it was a reasonable and responsive bid and would recommend award to Contractors West, Inc.
Move to award.
Motion by Board Member LaRue to accept and approve staff's recommendations to award the contract for item 10E to Contractors West, Inc. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Board Member Cusperson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 10F.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project is another local project in the city of Nogales. The low bid was $447,500. The state's estimate was $392,722, or it was $54,778 over the state's estimate, or 13.9%. Right now, the department is working with the city of Nogales. They are looking for the additional funds. They believe, working, that they will be able to come up with that funding, but at this time, we're recommending postponement so they can get their finances in order.
Madam Chair.
Board Member Stratton?
I actually had a call from someone in Nogales that I happen to know, the deputy director. And he said they had found the funds, to his knowledge. And he has some concerns that postponing this too long, there may be some difficult weather issues because they just had a sewer water line project on that particular street. So I understand we have to have it in writing from them, but I would ask that if you receive that, if we could call a telephonic meeting and get this passed so they could move forward in order to accommodate their concerns about weather.
Madam Chair, Member Stratton, if that's the board's prerogative, we'd be happy to do that as soon as we get the information. Lloyd's looking at me like, what did you commit to?
Well, Madam Chair, don't forget, next Friday, we got a telephonic meeting, so if this comes in early next week, we've got the meeting for the wrong-way driver next Friday, and I would expect if this comes in, and as Dallas says it's good to go, that can be included in that agenda, so, I mean, we got an opportunity, so we'll keep monitoring that as staff.
Okay, thank you. So do we have a motion to approve, accept and approve, did I? Oh, to postpone, excuse me. A motion to accept and approve the staff's recommendation to postpone item 10F. We did. Motion was by Board Member Hammond, seconded by Board Member Cusperson, to postpone item 10F as stated. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 10G.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is another local project, this one in the city of Somerton. It is a shared use path is the project. The low bid was $743,936. The state's estimate was $701,573.85. It was over the state's estimate by $42,362.15, or 6%. Like the previous one, the city of Somerton does believe they can come up with the funding. They're just going through the process and working out that agreement. The staff's recommendation is to postpone and let us work out that agreement with the city of Somerton.
Is this one likewise one that would be ready by Friday?
When I get back, or even on the way, I will call and see where we're at with them moving forward. And if it is, Madam Chair, we'll bring it forward as soon as it's ready.
Okay. Do we have a motion to accept and approve staff's recommendation to postpone item 10G?
So moved.
Motion by Jack Sellers, or Board Member Sellers, seconded by Board Member Stratton to postpone item 10G. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 10H.
Madam Chair, this is a intersection improvement. This is a project we've worked on for a long time in the Florence area on 79 and 79B. The low bid was $618,961.62. The state's estimate was $809,624.22. It was under the state's estimate by $190,662.60, or 23.5%. We did see better than expected prices for the removals of the existing, the aggregate base, and the asphaltic concrete. After review of the bids, the department believes it was a reasonable and responsive bid and would recommend award to Combs Construction Company, Inc.
So moved.
Motion by Board Member Stratton to accept and approve staff's recommendation to award the contract for item 10H to Combs Construction Company, Inc. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Board Member LaRue. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 10I.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project is within the city of Sierra Vista on SR 90. It's a roadway rehab and widening. The low bid was $2,633,000. The state's estimate was $2,145,017. It was over the state's estimate by $487,983, or 22.7%. We saw higher than expected pricing within the asphaltic concrete, the aggregate base, and then they have a retaining wall. We saw a higher than expected price there. After review of the bids, the department does believe it was a reasonable and responsive bid and would recommend award to KE&G Construction, Inc.
Do we have a motion to accept and approve the staff's recommendation?
So moved.
Motion by Board Member Cuthbertson. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Board Member Hammond. Motions to accept and approve staff's recommendation to award the contract for item 10I to KE&G Construction, Inc. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 10J.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we're going home for Mr. Cuthbertson here. This is in Clifton. We met with the community about a year and a half ago, and we talked about some traffic calming opportunities through the area. On this project, the low bid was $668,231. The state's estimate was $462,496. It was over the state's estimate by $205,285, or 44.3%. We saw higher than expected pricing in the concrete mobilization. The groups will have to mobilize quite some distance. We did review the bids. Staff believes it was a reasonable and responsive bid and would recommend award to AJP Electric, Inc.
Is there a motion to accept and approve staff's recommendation?
Move to approve.
Motion by Board Member Cuthbertson to accept and approve staff's recommendation to award the contract for item 10J to AJP Electric, Inc. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Board Member Stratton. With no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 10K.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is my last one. I'm sure right now Mr. Hammond is kicking himself because he told me last night, we do not hear enough from you at the board meeting. So right now, I'm sure he's kicking himself.
Made up for it.
On this project, it is a removal of a water supply. When we did some work on the 260 corridor, a number of projects, we put in a water system supply to supply construction water for this project. For the last project, we have a different source, so we need to remove this as a part of our contract and agreement with the Forest Service. The low bid was $482,564.54. The state's estimate was $857,305.77. It did come under the estimate by $374,741.21, or 43.7. We saw better than expected pricing for the removal of the pipe, the pump station, some of the structures. One of the things the contractor does receive these materials and sees a salvage value that they can put into it, and we saw that in the pricing, the good pricing that they gave us. After review of the bids, the department believes the bid is reasonable and responsive and would recommend award to Hatch Construction and Paving, Inc.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Board Member Stratton.
A couple of questions, Dallas. Will this affect the Lion Springs project in any way?
Madam Chair, Member Stratton, no. We have found another water source that we do not need this one to do work for there.
And will this complete our, I believe that agreement's between SRP, Forest Service, and ADOT?
That is correct.
And the injection wells, is that going to be completed by another contractor, or do we have to do anything there? Or is this going to complete and fulfill that contractual?
Madam Chair, Member Stratton, I believe we have got the water table up to where we need it to be, and so we have met our requirements with SRP.
So will we have to do any further removal of any equipment other than what this contract?
My understanding, and I'll confirm it, but my understanding is this completes all of our obligations when we put the water system in.
Move to approve.
Motion by Board Member Stratton to accept and approve the staff's recommendation to award the contract for item 10K to Hatch Construction and Paving, Inc. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Board Member Cusperson. If no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Wow. Okay, we are now on to item 11, suggestions.
Madam Chair, just a couple of things for the board's consideration. As already identified, next Friday on the 20th of July, we have scheduled a telephonic board a meeting to award the wrong-way driver detection system project. In addition, we will monitoring the items 10F and 10G to see if those are prepared and ready to be awarded at that time. Agenda should go out early next week, and so we'll be prepared to do that. I also wanted to remind the board that, again, there's no meeting in August. Remember, August was the month off. In consideration of that, I have been working with the board chair. There will be no study session in August. We are looking at preparing the items that we've been asked to look at for a study session would roll into the October study session, so we're moving forward with the coordination and preparation for that. But I do want to remind the board that in August, we still need to address, because of the contract timeframe requirements, we still need to address construction contracts. So we will look, working with the board's chair schedule and your schedule, a time that week of the 14th to the 18th, basically when the board meeting would have scheduled, to get a telephonic meeting in that and get ourselves prepared so we can address the board wards at that time. And then the last item, just for consideration, in September, reminder, we were coordinating a meeting on the Hopi Nation up in the Second Mesa area, and in coordination with their leadership, it looks as if we're settling on a location at Moncopy, which is just next to, or Moncopy, which is just next to Tuba City. So they have a facility there that will be able to host the meeting. In addition, they have a number of events that they're looking to schedule that Thursday in the afternoon, afternoon into evening, to include a little tour of the area, a little bit of discussion on the culture, the Hopi culture, a traditional dance, as well as a dinner that night in consideration of the board having a meeting there. So we'll have more information as Lynn and I are able to coordinate and get that set up, but just some things to consider over the next couple of months, activities, and then if you've got obviously any questions as we provide the information, just let Linda or myself know.
Okay. I would just like to ask that an invitation be extended to Orlando Teller, our former board member. The reason we're even having it up in that area is because he made the request. So since he's no longer on the board, I'd like to at least invite him to
Yes, ma'am.
attend. Thank you.
We'll work on that. So with that, if there are any other agenda items, we do capture the one for November to get a further update on our coordination on the State Route 69 project and the 4th Street Bridge project. If there are any other agenda items, please let us know.
Are we good? Is there a motion to adjourn the board meeting? State Transportation Board meeting of July 21st, 2017.
So moved.
Motion by Board Member Cusperson.
Second.
Seconded by Board Member Sellers. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. This meeting's adjourned.